So what else can you tell us about like what actually happens in a session? Because you practically told us that it's really just having the client, I would imagine, get into this like tranquil, relaxed state, and you're working with the subconscious. But what else can you tell us about what happens in a hypnosis session? What it is you actually trained on?
Sure.
What technique you use and such?
Okay, so I am certified in quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is a type of transpersonal hypnosis.
Okay.
So transpersonal hypnosis works from the framework that our consciousness isn't tied to our body. So it's that we can experience and have access to information beyond the self, the physical self. So it's to say either that your consciousness is able to have access to more information, or even that the soul journeys far and wide.
And that's the spiritual part of what you do.
Yes, it's intrinsically spiritual. Yeah, transpersonal hypnosis is intrinsically spiritual. You can't separate those two. And it's not the only school of hypnosis. So, you sort of like take your pick. If you're of a more spiritual bent, this is a great way to go.
Yeah.
As long as you're comfortable with that framework. Now, it can work even if you don't buy in, but you're going to have a more effective session if you do have some buy-in. On paper, what the technique looks like is, my client and I sit down and talk for a long time until we feel comfortable with each other. And then they lay down, and then we talk to each other some more. So it's like that's what it looks like on paper. Like if you're just an outside observer, like what are they doing?
It's like a chill session.
Yeah. We hang out, and then you lay down, and we hang out some more while you relax.
Yeah.
So okay.
Which kind of takes away from that misconception of like the clock and everything.
No, there's none of that stuff.
Yeah,
so it's really just talking. Yeah, it's just talking.
It's that setting, okay.
Right. And in quantum healing hypnosis technique, when you're laying down, so you have two jobs. It's your body's job to get in the deepest state of relaxation possible, and it is your ego's job, the awake, aware, problem-solving state of consciousness. It's your ego's job to allow. So the mantra I give my clients is allowing, allowing, allowing.
Okay.
Because as long as your ego is driving the bus, they're not going to let anything extra in. So you're just going to lay down aware that you're laying on the bed in the office. It's like you're not going to get any extra experience if you can't allow it to come through. So it's like we get the ego to stop driving and go sit down and chill so someone else can kind of be in charge. And so the question is like, well, who's that?
Yeah.
And the answer in this technique is the higher self. So the idea is that by letting the ego relax and letting the body and the nervous system relax, that it allows you to become a channel for your own higher self. So you're actually trying to align with a higher version of yourself, with a bigger version of yourself, with the transpersonal version of yourself.
So it's always yourself.
Yes.
Okay, because I wanted to just say real quick that you kind of, like what I got in mind from your explanation, you kind of took me to a place where people use different tools like this such, but like drugs.
Yeah.
Like drugs could also be a tool that takes you
to different levels of consciousness, right?
To different levels.
Yes.
But you're saying this is for your higher self, which is more of the spiritual side.
Yes. Well, and that's
comparison to
right.
a drug.
That's right. Well, and there are two things that are really different about using drugs to experience altered states of consciousness and using hypnosis. So, when you are using, like hallucinogens, for example, to alter your state of consciousness, oftentimes people aren't coming into contact with a higher version of themselves as much as they're coming into contact with something else that is often described as the consciousness of the plant that they're using, which is really fascinating. So it's like their guide on that journey is the plant that they chose to alter their consciousness. In hypnosis, not only do we, as the client, you have a lot more control over where you're tuning your consciousness in hypnosis because you're not just like diving into the deep end of the pool. Not only can you stay closer to your general level of comfort, like where you are comfortable being, but the guide is your practitioner who's right there with you, and then your own higher self. So the external factor is the practitioner instead of for example, a plant teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guide on this journey is the high self. So as the practitioner, it's actually my job not to tell you where to go. The high self takes you to where you need to go, where there's information that can help you. And then I help you navigate the space wherever it is that you land. So people land in all sorts of places, whether it's like a past life. I've had people, come up in like medieval times or something like that. Yeah. Or like in the 1950s in Scandinavia. Like there's all sorts of interesting kind of past lives that come up, and they're dealing with normal things like love and family relationships, or like money troubles, or like, career fulfillment. It's like normal human condition stuff. But I've had people land in all sorts of other experiences too, because again, it's not like, oh, we're just going to past lives. We're actually tuning through levels of consciousness. So some of those land you in a past life, but some of them land you in like an abstract space where you're like, I'm in the clouds. My spirit guide is here. And you're just together, like having a conversation amongst a bunch of clouds and fog, and there's nothing distinct happening at all. So that's another thing that's common in transpersonal hypnosis, is that you can do these sessions so that you're telling a client where to go, but they tend to be a lot more effective when you don't. When you just say, hey, higher self, take this client where they can learn the most wheel. That's helpful right now. Yes, exactly. So again, we're asking that ego to chill so that the high self can drive the bus, take them where the lessons are that will be helpful to them now. And then we try to get the lessons out so it's recorded. They are talking the whole time. We record it so they can listen to it when they are awake and aware. And that's where it all comes full circle. Okay. Hearing it later when they're awake and when the ego's driving again helps connect it all, so that instead of just kind of ignoring what we learned, the ego has to contend with the lessons that came up so that they can integrate it and apply it in their life. And that's where the real transformation happens.